Hello nerds, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be my April wrap up, everything that I read this past month, and then I thought I would make things a little bit more interesting and do a monthly report. You know that trend where it's like reading, eating, playing, obsessing, recommending, and treating. I see it all the time on TikTok and they're so much fun to watch, and I've seen a couple people do it on YouTube now, so I thought that I could join in on the fun and just make this video a little bit more exciting and talk about some other parts of my life besides just reading. But I am going to start with everything that I read this month, and per usual, I'm going to tell you what I liked, I'm going to tell you what I didn't like, and I'm going to tell you who I would recommend the book for. Okay, the first book that I read in April was Immortal Dark by Tigest, Girma. I'm sure you've seen this floating around. It's been really popular the last couple of months. It's a dark academia fantasy where human bloodlines gain power from vampire companionships. Donna, the main character of this book, is an orphaned heiress who grew up away from this arcane society. When her sister June is kidnapped by the Donna family vampire named Sagad, Dawn must infiltrate an elite university to get her back. It's an enemies to lovers fantasy where all of the characters are beyond morally gray. None of the characters are good people, but honestly, you can kind of empathize and see why it is that they do what they do. I think there's maybe one character who wasn't morally gray and who was actually like a good person. The romantic tension between Dawn and Susenyos was very cringe at times, but if you can look past that, this is quite a fun read. I had a fun time reading this. I was switching between the audiobook and the physical copy, and when it ended, I was low-key sad because I did thoroughly enjoy myself. The one thing that I didn't really like about this book was that the dialogue felt overly scripted and very unnatural. It felt like it was trying to fit the mold of what an enemies to lovers novel should look like, or what it typically looks like. It was very predictable what the romantic interests were going to be saying to each other at very specific times throughout the book, and I just feel like it could have gone through another round of edits. I would recommend Immortal Dark to fans of the Vampire Diaries. I love the Vampire Diaries. I enjoyed this, and you will too. The second book that I read in April was The White Book by Hong Kong. This is a collection of narrative poems that meditate on the color white. It's an exploration of grief, specifically the author's exploration of her own grief towards an older sister who passed away just hours after she was born. I really love poetry. I'm a poet myself. I love how it's so uniquely personal to the author, the poet, but also to the person reading it. Everybody interprets poetry in a different way, and I think that's the beauty of it. Poetry can resonate with so many different people in so many different ways. Unfortunately, I didn't really resonate with this one. The descriptions of white made the entire book feel very cold, and it made me feel distant to the author's poetry. And I guess that was kind of the point, but I just didn't connect with the words like I usually do when I read poetry, and for that reason I didn't really love this one. This was my first Hong Kong book. I do still want to read Human Acts and The Vegetarian because I think that I will appreciate those books a lot more than I did this one. That's not to say that it was a bad book, I just didn't connect with it. And I would recommend this book to people who have experienced deep familial grief. Next, I read Alcestis by Katharine Beutner. If you've watched a few of my other wrap-up videos, I've been saying for months that I have been currently reading this. It took me forever to get through. We'll get to why that's the case. This is a queer retelling of the play Alcestis, written by Eurydice, an ancient Greek tragedian. Alcestis sacrifices herself to save her husband Admetus's life. She descends into the underworld, and she hopes to reunite with her dead sister. I'm just now realizing that every book I read this month, except for one, has themes about sisterhood, but instead of immediately reuniting with her dead sister, Alcestis finds herself falling into the seductive spell of Persephone, queen of the underworld. This book had really beautiful prose, and I really liked the queer interpretation of it. I liked the relationship between Alcestis and Persephone. There's another queer relationship, and it's between Admetus and Apollo. I loved that, but I wish it would have explored it a little bit more because we really don't see very much of that relationship. If I'm being so honest though, this book was a huge disappointment for me. I love Eurydice so much, and I feel like this book just didn't really capture the essence of the play very well. It did stick to source material, but the play is inherently supposed to be a comedic play, and this book was anything but. And that's fine with retellings. I don't expect them to always be a one-for-one replica, but for Alcestis, because it's supposed to be a comedic play, I kind of wish that that was captured in this retelling. Alcestis is supposed to be a very darkly humorous play. It starts off extremely tragically with Alcestis dying and Admetus grieving his dead wife, but then as we move through the play, it becomes just very silly and funny as we watch Admetus grieve, and when his wife returns to him from the dead, which, by the way, Heracles is the one who returned her, which I think is hilarious. Like, that man did absolutely everything. He doesn't recognize his wife, and that scene is just so funny, and it wasn't funny here, and I wish it had been funny. Another thing that I didn't really like was that there was only 1 to 2 chapters dedicated to Alcestis and Admetus's marriage, which is like a huge portion of the play that, like, it's only about their marriage and their love for each other. But the first half of this book focused so heavily on Alcestis's childhood, the second half focused so heavily on her time in the underworld, and I just wish that the marriage had a more balanced relationship to the rest of the book. It was just too short and too quick, and because it plays such a huge role in the actual play that this book is retelling, I feel like it should have had more than 2 chapters. Anyways, I would recommend this to obviously fans of Greek mythology. If you enjoy a retelling, you will most likely enjoy this one. Especially I feel like if you like maybe the Song of Achilles, I think you'll like this one. And the last book that I read in April was The River Has Roots by Amal El-Mohtar. Let's just take a second to admire this beautiful book. It's stunning. This is another book about, you guessed it, sisterhood. In the small town of Thistleford, the Hawthorne family harvests willow trees and sings to them in thanks for their magic. Sisters Esther and Isabel cherish each other and the trees so deeply. When Esther rejects a suitor in favor of a lover from the land of Faerie, the sisters bond and their lives are at risk. This is a novella, so it's super duper short. It's very whimsical and nostalgic. As I was reading this, I felt like I was a child again learning about a new fairy tale. The illustrations were absolutely gorgeous, and I feel like more adult novels should be picture books. It's good to access your inner child once in a while. There was also a short story at the very end of this, which I really enjoyed. It was so awesome. It was called John Hollowback and the Witch, and it's about this man who has a hollow back, like he has a hole in his back, and he goes to this witch to figure out why he has a hole in his back, because as this chunk was taken out of him, he lost a bunch of his memories, and the witch helps him to regain those memories by filling in the hole in his back. So whimsical, so magical. I loved it. The one thing that I didn't really love about this book was that it does get a little bit confusing at times because some of the characters speak in riddles, but it fits the vibes of the book, and so I can look past that. I would absolutely recommend this to fans of Studio Ghibli, especially if your favorite movie is Ponyo. Oh my god, you will love this book so much. I totally lied. That was not the last book that I read. I forgot about one more because I read it on my Kindle, so I don't have a physical copy, and it was Eurydice by Sarah Ruhl. It's a short play that retells the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, but what I loved about it was that it's set in a world that feels like Alice in Wonderland, which when I was growing up, that was one of my favorite movies. So the myth is about a newlywed couple, Orpheus and Eurydice. Eurydice dies right after their wedding, and she's obviously descends into the underworld, and Orpheus is devastated by the loss of his new wife, so he decides to venture into the underworld to bring her back to life. He is not successful, and it's a very tragic story. It's super duper sad. If you've read the version in Ovid's Metamorphoses, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It makes you want to bawl your eyes out. And although the story is very tragic, I liked this retelling because of how whimsical and silly it felt. It was still very sad, don't get me wrong, but it felt so, I don't know how else to describe it other than silly. For example, Hades is interpreted as a child riding a red tricycle that is too small for him and wearing clothes that are also too small for him. For the king of the underworld, that is just such a ridiculous image. I loved it. And the chorus is made up of 3 stones, and Ruhl says to imagine them like they're nasty children at a birthday party. It's hilarious. Like I said, the myth is very tragic to begin with, but this play was tragic in a way that I was not expecting whatsoever, and I'm not going to tell you why, you just have to read it to find out. My only criticism was that it was too short. I wish it was longer. I needed more of that world. And I would recommend this play to obviously fans of Alice in Wonderland, but also if you're a fan of Hadestown or the Netflix show Chaos. And then I'll quickly take you through what I'm currently reading. So we've got The Secret History by Donna Tartt. This is the mother of the dark academia genre, and it's the last of the what the fuck Richard genre that I am making my way through. I've read all the other ones. This is the last installment. And yes, what the fuck Richard. I'm also reading The Buffalo Hunter Hunter. This is an indigenous revenge story about a hunter who hunts buffalo hunters. And I'm also listening to the audiobook for American War by Omar Akkad. If you have not read any of his work, I'm begging you to please read it. He is such an incredible author. This is a dystopia about a second American Civil War set in 2074. And I think it's perfect for fans of The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins or Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. Okay, let's move on to the rest of my April report. Let's move on to what I've been eating. I recently discovered this local creperie that makes the best crepes. Oh my god, they were so delicious. I went with my mom and my sister and I got traditional French crepes, which, if you don't know, you put lemon and sugar on the inside of the crepe and you roll it up like a little burrito and you just eat it. They didn't roll them up, which I was kind of sad about, but they folded them really nicely and they topped it with icing sugar, and I had some strawberries on the side and it was just so yummy. I loved it so much. It brought me back to my childhood. I need to learn how to make crepes because sometimes I crave them really badly. So I'm happy that I know about this place now and that I can easily get to it. What have I been playing? I've seen people interpret this as like literally what they've been playing, like doing fun things, but I've also seen people talk about music that they've been playing, so I'll talk about both. I have been obsessed with this game on my phone called Township. My best friend was playing it like 2 weeks before me and she was like, you have to download this game. It's one of those games where you can design and build a town. I love those type of games. I've been obsessed with Dragonvale and Restaurant Story for the longest time. But what I love about Township is that there's a couple other aspects to the game that are so much fun. So there's this other like alternate world where I don't even know how to describe it. There's like fog and you have to smash objects to get through the fog to complete these tasks. And right now we're discovering Atlantis. I love that. I love Atlantis. That's awesome. And then there's also a Candy Crush type of game that I can't put down. I can't put it down. It's my favorite part of Township. I'm on level like 830 or something crazy like that. As for music, I'm really the type of person that listens to any genre. Like, I pretty much love all music. But when I find a song or an album that I really like, I will play it on repeat for several months and not listen to anything else. So right now, I have a 2025 playlist and it's pretty much only comprised of the soundtrack for the show Arcane and The Weeknd's new album, Hurry Up Tomorrow. I'm going to see The Weeknd in the summer. I'm so excited. And I'm also excited for the movie. And then for the Arcane soundtrack, I've specifically been listening to Ma Meilleure Ennemie by Stromae, which when I was watching the show and that song started playing, immediately I clocked it as, oh my god, that's Stromae. And I was like, this is so iconic. You won't understand unless you grew up in Canada and did French immersion. We would be busting out all the moves listening to Papa Ute in grade 4 French class, and we would beg our teacher to play it during lunchtime. We were obsessed with it. This song was foundational to my childhood. Oh, and I've also been getting back into French rap. Okay, obsessing. I have been obsessing over this goose plushie that my sister bought from Miniso the other day. If you've read Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, you know exactly why I'm obsessing over this. All I can think about is Lenore Dove when I look at that plushie, and I kind of want to get one myself because I feel bad that Lenore Dove and Hamish have been separated by my sister. How dare she? Recommending, I would love to recommend the podcast Cupid. It's hosted by Q Code, and I listen to it on Spotify, but I'm sure you can find it like Apple Music or something. If you watch my videos because I talk about Greek mythology and retellings and all that, you're going to love this so much. It's not explicitly a Cupid and Psyche retelling, but it does share a lot of similar themes. The main character is obviously Cupid, and he works for his mother Aphrodite in a factory that makes loom juice, and he's in charge of distributing the loom juice. But one day all of it gets stolen and he's blamed for it, and as his punishment he is cast down to the human realm where he has to be a human for a week, I'm pretty sure. And if he doesn't find out who stole the loom juice by the end of the week, he has to go to like a training camp with his father Ares, which he absolutely does not want to do. Cupid is not a war type of guy. He's all about love, right? The podcast is about him completing this mission, and he falls in love along the way, and it's great. I loved it so much. I love listening to podcasts, but this was something so unique and so different. It wasn't like your typical podcast. There's an entire cast of voice actors who play all the different characters, and there's music and there's sound effects, and it feels like you're watching a movie, but like without the actual visuals. I don't really know how to describe it. You have to go listen to it, but it's so much fun, and it's only about 8 episodes long. They're all like 45 minutes. Listen to it while you're on a walk. Listen to it while you're cooking or driving. You'll have so much fun. You're welcome. And finally, treating. I tried crumble cookie for the first time over Easter. Life-changing. They had this like lemon glaze cookie with an actual piece of lemon on the top. I love lemon desserts. I mean, I talked about the lemon and sugar crepes before. I love, love, love lemon. I love citrus. It's like one of my favorite flavors, one of my favorite scents. Anyways, this cookie was so freaking good, and I really hope that they bring it back soon. I feel like it's not really a popular flavor, but I loved it. It was delicious, and I definitely will be returning to crumble in the future. I love a sweet treat, you know? Everybody needs a sweet treat once in a while. Okay, so that is it for my April report. Let me know what your report was for April. I would love to hear it. Let me know what you have been reading, what you've been listening to, what your favorite read of April was, what your most disappointing read of April was. Thank you so much for watching, as always. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye for now.